My mother kicked me out at 16 for my half-brothers. Now she shows up 13 years later demanding $50K for their college. But when she stalked me at work and assaulted me in my own apartment, the police gave her a wake-up call she'll never forget. I'm 29 years old. I work in digital marketing, and about 6 months ago, my life turned into a nightmare that still hasn't completely resolved itself. The thing is, my mom, who I hadn't seen in over a decade, showed up out of nowhere asking for money for my half-siblings' college education, the twins, who were basically the reason she kicked me out of the house when I was 16 years old. And when I say she kicked me out, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. She literally threw my stuff in trash bags and told me to leave because there was no more room for me. But let me start from the beginning because this story is more complicated than it seems. My mom had me when she was 20 years old, and my biological father, well, that guy disappeared before I was born. I never met him, and honestly, never cared to meet him. I grew up with my mom and my maternal grandparents, who were basically my second parents. And the truth is, it wasn't a bad childhood at all. My mom worked a lot, like a nurse on night shifts. So I spent quite a bit of time with my grandparents. But when she was home, things were good. You know, normal. I remember we'd go to the park on Sundays. She'd help me with homework. We'd watch movies together. She was a single mom doing her best, and I loved her a lot. My grandparents lived like 10 minutes away from us, and they were always there. For everything. They were my safety net, I guess. Everything changed when I was like 8 years old. I think, or maybe I was a bit older. I don't remember exactly. But my mom met Benjamin. He worked in construction, had his own small business or something like that. And at first he seemed like a decent guy. He never bothered me or anything. He was just there. They got married when I was 12. It was a small wedding in my grandparents' backyard. And I remember thinking that maybe this was okay. That maybe it was good for my mom to have someone. Benjamin moved into our house, which was a small 2-bedroom house. Nothing fancy, but it was our home. And for the first few years, everything stayed relatively normal. He worked, my mom worked, I went to school, did my typical teenage things, and although Benjamin and I were never super close, there wasn't any drama either. It was like living with an adult roommate rather than a father. You know what I mean? Things started getting weird when I was 15. My mom got pregnant, and when I say it was a shock, it was a huge shock. She was like 35 at the time, and I honestly thought she didn't want more kids, but turns out she was pregnant with twins. The whole dynamic of the house changed immediately. Suddenly, everything revolved around the pregnancy, preparing the house for the babies, buying double of everything because there were 2, and I started feeling like a piece of furniture, like I was there, but nobody really paid attention to me. Looking back, I should have seen it coming, but I was 15 and in my own world of school and friends and didn't think things could change that much. The twins were born right after I turned 16. It was in March, I think. And for a couple months, everything was total chaos in the house. Babies crying at all hours. My mom exhausted. Benjamin stressed about money because now there were 2 more mouths to feed and diapers and all that stuff is expensive, you know? I tried to help when I could, like babysit while my mom slept for a bit. But honestly, I also had my life. I had school. I had a part-time job at a coffee shop on weekends because I wanted to save up for a car or for college. I'm not sure what my plan was exactly at that moment. Then one day, it was like in June, about 3 months after the twins were born, I came home from school, and my parents, well, my mom and Benjamin, were sitting in the living room, waiting for me. My mom had that face she'd make when she was about to say something serious, and Benjamin was just looking at the floor, and I immediately knew something bad was coming. I sat down and my mom basically told me, "We need to talk about your future." And I thought, okay, maybe she wants to talk about college or something. But no, what she said was that with the twins, things were very tight financially, that the house was too small for everyone, that they couldn't keep supporting me anymore. She literally told me, "We think it would be better if you moved in with your grandparents. They have more space and we need that space for the kids." I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't process what I was hearing. I said, "Are you kicking me out? Seriously?" And she got all defensive, saying she wasn't kicking me out, that it was best for everyone, that I would understand when I was older, that they couldn't support 3 kids, and I was already 16, that I was almost an adult, that my grandparents loved me and would be happy to have me. Benjamin didn't say a single word during the entire conversation. He just nodded when my mom talked, and that made me even angrier. I tried to reason with her, told her. I worked and paid for my own stuff. that I didn't cost them that much, that I could help more with the babies. But she had already made the decision. She told me I had until the weekend to pack my things. That Friday, I came home from school and all my stuff was in black trash bags in the garage. She didn't even let me pack properly, just threw everything there like it was literal garbage. I called my grandparents crying and they came to pick me up immediately. They didn't ask questions, just hugged me and told me I would always have a place with them. My grandfather loaded the bags into his truck, an old Ford that was like 1,000 years old, and we left. I remember looking back as we pulled out of the driveway, and I saw my mom standing at the living room window with one of the twins in her arms, and she just looked at me with no expression. Didn't say goodbye or anything. Living with my grandparents was the only thing that saved me, honestly. They gave me all the love and support that my mom took away from me overnight. My grandmother helped me with homework, made me breakfast every morning. My grandfather drove me to work at the coffee shop and picked me up. But I'm not going to lie. I was emotionally destroyed, like I couldn't understand how my own mother had abandoned me for her new children, as if I didn't matter anymore. I spent months feeling like that, wondering what I had done wrong. If it was somehow my fault. My grandparents tried to cheer me up, telling me it wasn't anything personal, that my mom was overwhelmed. But I knew the truth. She had chosen, and I wasn't the choice. I finished high school living with my grandparents, got good grades because I needed scholarships if I wanted to go to college. There was no way I could pay for it otherwise. My mom didn't contact me even once during those 2 years. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas, nothing. It was like I had stopped existing for her. My aunt, my mom's sister, was the only one from that side of the family who stayed in touch, and she was the one who helped me get student loans by being my co-signer, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to go to college. I got into a state university like 2 hours away from my grandparents' house, studied marketing because I liked it, and it seemed like something that could get me a good job after. College was hard in ways I didn't expect. I worked on campus, at the library, like 20 hours a week while taking a full course load. And even then, I barely had money to eat sometimes. My grandparents sent me something when they could, but they were already retired and didn't have much either. There were days I ate ramen and peanut butter basically, and I'd see other students with their parents visiting them, taking them out to eat, paying for everything, and I'd feel that anger that never completely went away, that feeling of, why do I have to do this alone? But it also made me more determined, like I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to succeed despite everything. I graduated like 5 years ago, got an entry-level job at a digital marketing agency here in the city. The salary was horrible at first, like $35,000 a year before taxes. And with student loan payments, I could barely afford a tiny apartment. I shared with 2 roommates. I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, but I was building my career, learning, working crazy hours to prove I was worth it. After like 2 years, they promoted me to account coordinator and the salary improved a bit. I was able to move into my own studio. Nothing luxurious, but it was mine. And I started feeling like I was finally stable, that I had managed to build something on my own. About 8 months ago, they promoted me again. Now I'm a senior account manager and I make like $75,000 a year, which for me is a huge amount of money considering where I came from. I was able to buy a decent used car, a 2019 Mazda 3. Started saving money for the first time in my life, and I felt like I was finally where I wanted to be. I talked to my grandparents every week, visited them when I could. They were super proud of me, and that meant everything to me. Then 6 months ago, on a normal Tuesday, I was working from home when I heard someone knocking on the door. I opened it without thinking much, and there was my mom, who I hadn't seen in over 10 years, standing at my door like nothing had happened. I literally froze, didn't know what to say, and she smiled and said, "Hi, honey, you look so different. You're a full-grown adult now." She asked if she could come in, and I don't know why, let her in. I guess I was in shock or something. She sat on my couch and started with small talk, asking me how I was, what I'd been doing, and I just stared at her thinking, seriously? After more than 10 years, you come at me with small talk? Finally, I asked her directly, "What are you doing here?" And that's when she came out with what she really wanted. She told me the twins, who were now 13, were very smart and wanted to go to college when they graduated, but she and Benjamin didn't have money saved for that. She had found out through my aunt that I now had a good job and thought maybe I could help, contribute to my siblings' education. I laughed. I literally laughed in her face. Couldn't believe the audacity. I told her, Are you kidding me? You kicked me out of the house so you could focus on them, you completely abandoned me, and now you come asking me for money for their education? She got all defensive, saying I was exaggerating, that she hadn't abandoned me, that she just did what she had to do at the time, that she thought I'd be better off with my grandparents. I told her to leave my apartment, that I wasn't going to give her a single cent, that she made her choice years ago and now had to live with the consequences. She tried to keep talking, but I interrupted her and said, "Get out of here now or I'm calling the police." She left. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. She started sending me emails, like every day, telling me I was selfish, that it was my responsibility to help my family, that the twins were innocent in all this and didn't deserve to suffer for our past problems. She also started calling me, leaving voicemails crying, saying she had raised me alone for years, that I owed her this. How could I be so cruel to my own siblings? I blocked her number, but she'd get other numbers and keep calling. It was exhausting. Every day I'd come home from work with anxiety, thinking about what new message or email I was going to find. Then things escalated horribly. One day, about 4 months ago, I was at the office. We had an important meeting with a client. And suddenly the receptionist calls me and tells me there's someone here who says she's your mom and needs to see you urgently. I couldn't believe it. How had she found me at work? I went down furious, and there she was in the lobby, crying and making a scene, saying her daughter didn't want to help her, that family should support each other. There were people watching. My colleagues were there. It was humiliating. I had to call security to get her out, and they ended up calling the police because she wouldn't leave. That day, my boss called me into his office and asked me what was going on. I had to explain the whole situation to him. It was horrible. The emails became more aggressive after that. She told me I was a horrible daughter, that I would regret this, that the twins were going to hate me when they found out I had money and didn't want to help them. In one of the emails, she told me she was going to tell the whole family what kind of selfish person I had become, that she was going to make sure everyone knew I had abandoned my family. My aunt contacted me after my mom called her, and thank God my aunt was on my side. She told me I didn't owe my mom anything, to set boundaries and not feel guilty. But my mom didn't stop. She started showing up at my apartment, knocking on the door at random hours, like 10 at night on a Wednesday, 7 inches the morning on a Saturday. She'd leave notes on my door with things like, "Your siblings need your help," or "Family is forever." Once I found her waiting for me in my building's parking lot when I was coming back from the gym. She approached me and started yelling at me right there, telling me I was ungrateful, that after everything she had done for me, I couldn't do this to her. I told her again to leave and leave me alone, but she kept screaming, and I literally had to run to my apartment and lock the door. The straw that broke the camel's back was like 2 months ago. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in my apartment watching Netflix and relaxing after a heavy week at work when she started banging on the door like crazy. I opened without thinking maybe it was my neighbor or something, and there was my mom again. Before I could say anything, she pushed the door and forced her way in. She was screaming that she needed to talk to me, that this couldn't go on like this, that I had to understand she was just trying to do what's best for her children. I told her to leave immediately, or I was going to call the police, and she came up to me with her finger in my face, saying, "Are you going to threaten me, your own mother, after everything I did for you?" And I told her, "You didn't do anything for me. You kicked me out when I was 16. You completely abandoned me." That's when she completely lost control. She pushed me against the wall, not hard, but enough for me to fall back a bit, and started screaming in my face that I was an ungrateful bitch, that I would regret this, that she would make sure my life was hell. I was in shock, couldn't believe she was physically assaulting me. My next-door neighbor, a super sweet older lady who always said hi to me, must have heard all the commotion because she knocked on my door asking if everything was okay. My mom suddenly went quiet, and I opened the door. My neighbor saw my face, probably in panic, and said she was calling the police. My mom tried to run out, but the police arrived in like 10 minutes, talked to both of us, to my neighbor who had heard everything, and arrested my mom for assault. I spent that night giving my statement at the police station. It was surreal. Never thought it would get to this point. The police were super professional, explained that I could request a restraining order, that I had to document all the harassment I'd been experiencing. The next day, I talked to a lawyer that a friend recommended, and he helped me gather all the emails, the voicemails, testimonies from my neighbor, and from security at my work, and we applied for the restraining order. It was approved like a week later. My mom can't come near me, my work, or my apartment. She has to stay at least 500 feet away. Since then, it's been relatively quiet. I haven't had direct contact with her, but I found out, through my aunt, that she's super bitter, telling anyone who'll listen that I'm a horrible daughter who sent her to jail. The twins, who are now almost 14, don't even know the full story. My mom apparently told them I just don't want to be part of the family. I didn't tell them she kicked me out of the house when I was their age. Part of me feels something for them because they're just kids and none of this is their fault, but at the same time, I can't carry that responsibility. Not after everything. I'm in the process of moving to a new apartment in a different part of the city. I haven't told almost anyone the new address. Only my grandparents, my aunt, and a couple very close friends. My lawyer told me to keep all the restraining order documentation updated and to report any violation immediately. Sometimes I still have nightmares that she shows up at my door or at my work again. It's an anxiety that will probably take time to fully process. My grandparents have been incredible through all this. As always, my grandmother tells me I did the right thing, that nobody should tolerate that kind of harassment no matter who it is, that I don't owe anything to someone who abandoned me when I needed her most. My grandfather, who's normally a man of few words, told me last week he was proud of me for standing firm, for not letting myself be manipulated. That meant a lot to me, more than I can probably express. The truth is, I don't know how this story ends, or if it really ends someday. The restraining order is for 2 years. After that, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe my mom will finally understand she has to leave me alone, or maybe she'll try something else when it expires. For now, I'm trying to focus on my life, on my career that cost me so much to build, on the people who were really there for me when I needed them. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel more guilt about the twins, if I should have been the bigger person and helped somehow, but then I remember I was 16 when they kicked me out, that I had to do everything alone while they had 2 parents and a roof, and that guilt fades a bit. What I do know is I'm not going to let anyone manipulate me using family as an excuse anymore. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who are there when things get tough, and those people for me are my grandparents, my aunt, my friends who supported me through all this. My mom had her chance to be my family and chose not to be. Now she has to live with that decision. I guess in the end, I learned that setting boundaries isn't being cruel. It's taking care of yourself. And after everything I went through, that's what I need to do.